I mean, I have overdosed and died several times. I mean, gone. She's Narcaned me and had to bring me back. It doesn't get any lower than that. Yeah. But something on that fateful morning, going through withdrawals like that, we said, today's the day. And I said, no, God, it was going to be all right. And we walked down the road on the highway and praying on the way there.
The end of November, I mean, we were freezing. We had 3 layers of clothes on, muddy boots and hands, and hadn't taken a shower in God knows how long.
Yeah.
And when we got there, it was very, it was intimidating. But the people there,
so welcoming.
Yeah, it gets me every time because they didn't even
flinch.
Just, how are you? Good morning. We're so happy you're here. Come inside where it's warm. And they shook our hands.
Now, and that's an immense amount of shame walking through them doors. Because when you're invisible to people for so long, and I truly mean invisible, because you don't really notice the homeless people. You don't notice them unless, God forbid, they're walking close to your car. Or, man, I hope they don't ask me for change at the door or something like that. Besides that, they are invisible. And I mean, we live that invisibility and that shame. And when you're walking up to them doors, getting ready to walk in.
And thinking you're going to be shamed.
And
it's the exact opposite. I didn't realize until in that moment how badly we needed that.
Yeah.
So I was so grateful for that. And just being in that church, it was life-changing. I mean, down from the worship, the music, the songs that they sang, it just hit us. And then hearing the message, you remember the message?
It was soul-stirring, to say the least. And it, like you said, it watered a seed that needed it. And it blossomed. And let me tell you, brother, when it started, it didn't stop. And
that day, both of us gave our lives to Jesus that day.
Yeah. And it was so smooth. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And what about that moment when you gave your life to Jesus? What was taking place in the church, and tell me some details about that.
I think it was just the whole experience from the time that we walked in, the way that they treated us, and then the buildup of hearing the worship songs, like they're singing songs like "God, I Need You."
Chainbreaker was the song. Actually, now that you say Chainbreaker song,
okay.
And what is it? David and My Giants Will Fall.
Oh God, my God, I need you.
Oh God, my God, I need you.
Yeah.
And that was it, man.
It was
Chainbreaker.
And then Pastor Kenneth comes out and he does this whole message on. Remember, it was the pastor in the hammock. Pretty much.
Oh, the sword.
No, the first time was the hammock. So it was relying on God, putting everything you can on God, like.
Drop it at his feet and walk away. Don't turn around and say it's still there.
Hammock, and that is you. That's you with God. Okay. Yeah. So that was just like, it just made our wheels turn, I think.
Yeah. It triggered something that had happened. And now looking back, it's so obvious.
Yeah, I know.
It's so obvious what God was doing. He needed to forge us in the fire. He needed to sharpen iron with iron. He needed to resonate, or he needed to distill in us. Those might have been the worst years of our lives and the worst things that had happened in those lives. It so badly devastates you that it's shocking the events that took place in our lives. Yeah. But it needed to happen, and it wasn't to hurt us. It was to make us better. And we didn't see that. We're so caught up on the pain and why me and the victimality that we don't see. I never would have appreciated my wife the way I do now if it wouldn't have been for her being out there in that tent with me. If she wouldn't have walked side by side, blistered feet, waking up in the snow, if she wouldn't have been there with me side by side, I see that loyalty, I see that love, I see that commitment. That is the stuff of legend. And, to now, it shouldn't have taken that much. But my eyes have never been more open. And there's never been an equality like this before in our relationship. And going on 17 years now, I can't wait to see what the next 17 bring with her by my side. And it's through the grace of God that we still have each other. And we got custody of our children back.
Right. So
you know how hard that is?
When we went to church the first time, we gave our lives to Jesus. And 3 weeks later, I went to a treatment facility. And he went to a veteran shelter. And while I was in treatment, he was preparing, he was working. And then when I got out of treatment, this all took place in December. So I get out of treatment in January and I got a job. He already had a job. In mid-February, we got an apartment. And then that March, we decided, you know, we're going to try to apply for custody for our children, try to get them back. And every single person that we spoke to were like, that's not going to happen. It's going to take
soon. Yeah.
It's going to take 1 to 2 years. You two can't be together. There's no way. You know, you're going to end up abusing one another. You're going to use again.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the world is telling us. But we're going to church where they're saying
Yeah, the
nothing's
opposite.
impossible with God.
Yeah,
He
nothing.
can get you through anything. You know, pray, worship, read the Bible, apply what you learn. And we're taking all this in. So we're like, you know what? We're gonna apply anyway. So we do. And they did they agreed to weekend visitations.
Yep.
So, and that happened in April. So we get weekend visitations, and the first weekend with the kids, we start taking them to church.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then,
Oh, and then we got the apartment.
I already said that.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. And then so May comes along, we end up finally getting a vehicle because up at this point we're still walking everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With your children.
What's that?
With your children.
Yeah.
You're walking with your children wherever you got to go.
Oh yeah, we would
Yeah,
all walk
absolutely.
to the
Yeah,
stores.
absolutely.
They would have to help us carry groceries, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Thankfully, it was close by. But
So tell me real quick. I know I'm interrupting the story as you're going along, but so tell me, you know, where you're at with the children at this point, and that like. So I mean, first of all, you have a very safe church, which is so awesome, right? I mean,
Yeah.
You're talking about showing up in muddy clothes and train wreck, right?
yeah,
And just and welcoming. I mean, just beautiful story. I don't
Mm.
know if you see the tears rolling down my. Got me, man. But just this wonderful safe church, and then you're getting this wonderful messaging from this safe church to go get your children. I mean,
yeah.
awesome. So tell me about your children real quick.
Like in
Where
that,
they're at with this process. Like, how are they responding?
they responded very well.
Yeah, very well.
They did. They wanted to be with us. You know.
Yeah.
They were excited. I think it was a little bit of a transition because at that point our youngest was just 5. So when she was taken, she was only 3. She doesn't really remember.
She wasn't terribly. She didn't get to witness all that.
Right.
And
I mean, she did, but not remember it.
Yeah, she was so young.
The older 2, they remember, you know, the things that were happening. So I think they were a little, you know.
What were their ages?
Let's not put too much into this just yet.
Yeah, I don't know.
Sure.
I mean, their whole life has been false promises.
Yeah.
And
What were their ages?
when Silas left, and
when they were taken, they were 9 and 8.
And then the youngest was 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. So now they're like 10, 11, and 9 and 5.
Yes.
When you get that. Okay. Go ahead. And so go on with your story. So you were at this point in your story where we were talking about, you know, the children and you're visiting with them and they're coming along. So go ahead.
Right. So it's May. Like I said, we had the car and we have to check in with the judge. So when we check in with the judge, we're like, hey, you know, things have been going really well. You know, school ends June 15th next month. We'd like for the kids to come back full term with us and just be done with this whole custody agreement. And they were like, okay, well, we'll see what happens when we get to that point. Everybody thought we were crazy. They were like, that's not going to happen. But we totally had faith in God that he would show up for us, like always.
we showed proof of us going to rehab.
Yeah.
We showed
went to
proof
rehab,
of income,
therapy,
steady jobs.
vehicle. We had an apartment. And we did all this. Well, we and God did all this within 5-6 months.
It was no time at all.
You were at Blessings, right?
No. That, when,
No.
not yet.
No.
I was working at American Legion, which was the first. I was staying at Home of the Brave, which is a veterans home, and they had helped get me back on my feet, and I had got a job at the American Legion being a cook. So it was in town.
Mhm.
It wasn't terribly far from everything. And then she ended up getting a job at the Walgreens, which is across the street. Even though we were living in different locations, we were in the same vicinity.
I see. I got you. Okay, go ahead with the car and the judge. Go ahead. I apologize for interrupting you. I just like to.
Oh, Fine.
Take a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Usually I'm the talker, but she is nailing it. Go ahead.
I love it. I love it.
Okay, so
Ladies first, man.